Combined Transport has been one of the last companies to transition to a fleet manager. I want them interacting with every one of their drivers on a daily basis. I really want to see 2024 as a repair year.
Hello and welcome to CB Talk, the Combined Transport Blackwell monthly podcast. Today is April 19th, 2024, and I'm your host, Nick Card, Vice President of Operations. We have a great interview with Chris Clark, Fleet Operations Manager, today. We're going to talk about the changes to the flatbed division, what the glass forecast for 2024 looks like, as well as the new Fleet Manager program. What's that going to look like for drivers going forward? Stay tuned to find out. But first, the news. Congratulations to our employees of the month. Tracy Cash, our corporate employee of the month. Michael Gordine, our flatbed glass driver of the month. Marvell Wright, our Blackwell driver of the month. And Matt Barnett, our heavy haul driver of the month. Congratulations to you all, and thank you so much for the hard work you do with the company. We'd also like to remind everybody about the $2,000 driver referral bonus. If you know of anyone who has a CDL that's looking to work for a great company, please refer them. That means $2,000 in your pocket. Also, driver services and over-the-road maintenance are now at the headquarters building. Supervision is now located in the Career Center. If you need help with either departments, please don't hesitate to call. The numbers are exactly the same. Or stop by at their new location. Due to a lack of use on Sundays, the shop is now going to be closed. We've decided to reallocate personnel to the busier days so that way we have better service for drivers when they're coming through. If you need parts on Sunday, please send in a maintenance request, and the shop will label those parts with your truck number and put them in the driver's lounge for you to pick up. Otherwise, you can visit the shop on Saturday or Monday, and they're happy to help with any parts that you need. With that, it's time for the interview. And now we turn to the interview portion of our program. Today, our guest is Chris Clark. June represents 24 years with Combined for Chris. She started as a truck locator, and then she did the Salem desk with Glass Dispatch. She's since worked a bunch of different regions. We promoted her about 10 years ago to be the glass manager, and now she is our fleet operations manager for our restructured flatbed fleet. Chris, it's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be the second guest on the Combined podcast.
Yeah, appreciate you being part of this. So speaking of that fleet operations piece, that's where I think a lot of the questions come from. What is a fleet manager? What can a driver expect from their interaction with their fleet manager? And what is that going to look like going forward?
Well, I think for the longest time, Combined Transport in the specialized and flatbed industry has been one of the last companies to transition to a fleet manager. The main goal in a one-word explanation for a fleet manager program is revenue. Revenue for the company, revenue for the drivers. We really want the fleet managers to be that main point of contact for our drivers corporately. We want the drivers to know that they have somebody there to help facilitate maximizing their miles, their hours of service, home time. And in addition to that, we would be looking at those fleet managers managing costs, fuel costs, maintenance downtime. They're really that one focal point for our drivers, that one primary communication link.
So when you say revenue for the drivers, talk us a little bit through how are we going to be able to use these fleet managers to maximize miles, and how's that different from what we've been doing before?
Historically, we've always had dispatchers for territories. I think that it was such a broad region for the dispatchers to really focus on. By transitioning to a fleet manager program, it allows one fleet manager to really fine-tune the operations of a certain amount of trucks. We can manage the empty miles. We can manage the downtime in between unloading and reloading. they're working directly with the account managers to make sure that we've got loads on paper before those drivers get unloaded to maximize our hours of service as well.
One of the questions we had from a driver was a concern about rollover versus reset. They felt like they were being pushed and weren't able to really maximize their miles by having to run these rollovers. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your approach to managing those hours of service to try to maximize that for the drivers?
Ideally, in an 8-day work week, a driver, if they were to they ran their entire available hours out every single day, you could get almost 81 hours in an 8-day work week. Obviously, we know that's not going to be possible every single time. But if we have an opportunity and a load for a driver to pick up on a Thursday, and rather than him shut down and do a reset and then be available Saturday and Sunday, which we usually don't have weekend operations, we would encourage that driver to use the available rollover, get loaded so that they can be under a load and get down the road before they have to do a reset. In turn, that would allow us, again, to maximize that driver's miles.
So, with these new fleet managers, from a driver's perspective, how are they going to interact with these fleet managers? What's that going to look like compared to what they're doing today with, having to call different regional dispatchers, all that kind of stuff?
The fleet managers that we have currently are obviously in the learning phases. Flatbed and Glass have only been doing this since the 1st of March. My expectation of the fleet managers is that they're reaching out to those drivers before the drivers have to call them. I want them interacting with every one of their drivers on a daily basis, finding out how their trip is going. Is there any unexpected things that the driver ran into? Really getting that personal rapport built with the drivers in the hopes that the drivers understand that for us here, they're not just their driver contractor number. We know who Joe is and what he's got coming up and any struggles that he might be having. So the drivers know that they have somebody they can reach out to. In turn, I think it's really going to help with driver services as well, because we're going to be fielding a lot of those initial phone calls and communications.
So actually, speaking of driver services, we just had a move. Driver services and OTR got brought back to the headquarters. This is the first time in, 7 or 8 years that we've had them back under the same roof with dispatch. Can you talk a little bit about that transition from your perspective? How do you see that working out so far? What do you see, going forward for the drivers, for the dispatchers, fleet managers?
I'm really excited. Obviously, with the time that I've been here, our company has done a lot of changes, a lot of transitions. We are now back to where we were in the beginning, where everybody's under one roof. I think that the separation with the Blackwell Yard and the White House has almost created this false feeling of separation. Now relationships are being built. I have seen in just a short time that they've been over here that we have more timely communication with them because we can get up, go talk to them, and have that face-to-face conversation with our needs. And then, of course, we go back, we follow up with an email. But I really feel like it's going to be a benefit to the drivers for more timely resolution with over-the-road maintenance items, breakdowns, driver-related issues that supervision used to be handling separate from us.
Thinking back to your time in Glass, I know you're still very involved with the Glass piece of it. Something I know a lot of drivers have concerns about is Glass has been slow the last few years. What do you think is going to be happening for Glass in 24 and 2025? Are we going to see a return to form, if you will, from our Glass customers?
The glass industry and the glass manufacturers over the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years has gone through so many changes. Obviously, the one largest change is Vitro Industries. It used to be PPG. being purchased by the Mexican company Vitro. Operations US side were not quite understood as far as how much we pay our drivers and the timing of things. So they had to go through their own growing pains to figure out their needs, which in turn flowed down to us as a specialized carrier. I think that was our initial largest impact. Contractually, we saw the dedicated fleets go away. And, over the years, they've realized the value that combined transport provided them. So then we entertained new contracts. We got more dedicated. And now in 2024, we've increased those dedicated fleets. That coupled with the economy over the last couple years, with our main commodity being flatbed glass, for commercial and residential building, with the economy the way it's been the last 2 years, there has not been any increase. In fact, there's a decrease in building for commercial and residential properties. That directly impacted us. So I see 2024 already improving in second quarter. Our numbers for OTR glass loads have already increased. Our dedicated drivers are being more consistently used, which will improve the driver's miles. And then in addition to that, 2 10-year solar panel contracts have been obtained by Vitro, which is just going to open the door for us in 2025 for more business.
Excellent. That's some good news on the horizon. Something you'd mentioned was the amount of change that we have seen over the last few years. And I know for a lot of people, change is hard, change is scary. We've had a lot of changes in how we do, how we think about flatbed and with some of those glass pieces. Can you talk us through a little bit about sort of your take on this change? What change is still yet to come as far as you're thinking, and why this is the right thing for the company and for the drivers?
I know that a lot of the drivers experienced quite an impact first quarter when I personally had to reach out to them and ask them to change their lane allocation. Because of the last couple of years, in my opinion, I really want to see 2024 as a repair year for our company in those fleets. And primarily, we asked that the drivers understand that we pay them for the freight that they're hauling. I know that for a lot of the senior drivers, it was a little bit of a setback for them. But we as a company need to pay the drivers for the work that they do. We can't pay an over-the-road glass driver the highest base pay that we have and only have them haul lumber. Now that we see that glass is picking up, we do have that implemented to where the drivers are going to get an extra 5 cents per mile, plus live load pay, plus TARP pay for every over-the-road glass load that they haul. As we see the volumes increase and our assets being used more wisely by the manufacturers, hopefully somewhere down the line, we can revisit those changes that we made. We didn't say they were permanent. They are temporary. And I think that with the implementation of the fleet managers, the increase in miles that's going to produce for the drivers, hopefully that financial adjustment won't be such an impact on them.
So that's enough about work, I think, but I do have a fun question that I want to ask you about. You have perhaps a well-deserved reputation as a crazy plant lady. Do
Yes.
you have a favorite plant, and can you recommend any plants that our drivers might take with them in their truck that are easy to care for?
Yes, I would have to say my most old-time favorite plant would be a Monstera albo. So if anybody has an opportunity to do research on them, they're beautiful. And in the wild, they climb up as they grow taller, their leaves get larger. My most favorite one at home is about a 2.5 diameter span on the leaf pattern. So
That's a pretty sizable leaf.
it's very impressive. So
Wow.
she's got her own lights. her own area in the house. As far as over the road drivers having some positive oxygen generating items in their truck, an easy one that you can forget about and always have looking green and trailing would be a pothos.
A pothos.
Yeah, they're different varieties. Some are marbled, some are solid green, but they're very easy to care for. And if they look a little droopy, just add some water and they perk right back up. But in the truck, there's so much light that they would probably thrive.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. Anything else you want to add? Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I hope that these podcasts really generate some driver interaction. I think this is a great program, and I'm thankful that I got to be part of it. And I look forward to your future guests.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Chris, for that great interview. Our next episode will be out on May 17th. Our guest will be Roger Davis. If you have any questions for Roger, please send them to us on Facebook or email them to cbtalk@combinedtransport.com. We appreciate your participation. It is your engagement that makes this podcast work. Thank you for your time, thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of the Combined Transport family.